Alright, what's going on, Dolphins fans? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. Yesterday, just made a video talking about how the Miami Dolphins should trade Tyreek Hill at the end of the season, and it's not something that I want to do, but I certainly think is the best decision for the Dolphins in terms of not hitting the reset button, but hitting a retool button, getting rid of a still strong ass, still one of the best players in the league, gonna have to go through wrist surgery, is gonna be 30 years old, is on a $30 million contract. There are reasons why you don't want him as a team when you're bringing him in, but he's still clearly a player of a lot of talents that could generate some decent assets. But the person that would potentially do this, I don't think he would do it if he still has the job when it comes to the offseason. And that is Chris Grier, somebody who I think is going to be in job-saving mode this offseason and unfortunately push the Dolphins even further back. Chris Grier, alongside with Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, of course, does help with these things, but Chris Grier, the ultimate decision maker when it comes to trading, when it comes to drafting. Those player personnel decisions ultimately finally fall on the shoulders of GM Chris Grier. And in his time as Miami Dolphins general manager, we forget his early years from 2016 up until the Tua saga when we had to decide between taking Tua and Justin Herbert. Before that, did he really do anything? No, absolutely not. In recent years, since Tua has been on the team, he has had one good draft class, that being the 2021 draft class where he found Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, and Javon Holland. 3 hits. Javon Holland has taken a bit of a step back this year. Jalen Phillips is hurt. Jalen Waddle has not played his best football. So those 3 players, while I do believe are hits, are not playing the likes of, or playing at the level that they could, and we know they're certainly capable of. Those 3 are hits. This most recent draft class, Chop Robinson is the only draft pick that is having any sort of an impact, and he's finally having it, and I hope he ends up being a good player. That's still yet to be determined. He has to develop his skills, certainly more as a pass rusher. But that is the only impactful pick from that class so far. You're looking in years past, picks like Cam Smith, who is coming to the team, and all of a sudden now he's backing up Storm Duck. Draft classes like the Tua year where... That was weird. As I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted. Draft classes like the Tua year where you have 3 picks in the first round. And I like Tua, still a big fan of him. Got the chain up there behind me. Definitely Justin Herbert was the right pick. Definitely the better quarterback there. And Justin Herbert, you look throughout the draft. You look at Noah Igbenogany. You look at Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson has actually developed into a decent player, but there were still better offensive linemen that you could have taken. It's certainly a better pick that you could have had over Noah Igbenogany at the end. 2021, good draft class for the first 3 picks, but otherwise there's a lot of whiffs on the record for Chris Grier. Look at the trades that Chris Grier has done. You look at, first and foremost, what we just talked about yesterday with Tyreek Hill, giving up 5 picks for Tyreek Hill, a first, a second, a fourth in the first year in 2022, and then a fourth and a sixth the next year. And those picks have clearly come back to bite the Miami Dolphins as this team is so depleted on the defensive side of the ball from a lack of resources being given to them, and the resources that have been given to them haven't worked. You let guys walk like Andrew Van Ginkel, Christian Wilkins, Brandon Jones on the defensive side of the ball. You decide to replace them with all 30-year-olds like Jordan Poyer, Kendall Fuller. Calais Campbell has played well, but he is the lone 30-plus-year-old that the Miami Dolphins have brought into this defense that is working. The rest of them are just a bunch of guys that are washed at the end of their careers, whereas you draft guys with a first-round pick, with a third-round pick, with a middle-round pick. You find somebody as a late-round or even undrafted addition like Andrew Van Ginkel, right? You bring them in, you develop them like you're supposed to do as a team, as a general manager, as a head coach. You bring them in, you develop them just for their primes of their careers to be on other teams. Look what Brandon Jones is doing over in Denver, what we saw on Monday Night Football. Look at what Andrew Van Ginkel has been doing this season up in Minnesota. Look at the revolutionized offensive line that the Carolina Panthers have had that has led Chuba Hubbard to an all-pro caliber season up there in Carolina, led by Robert Hunt. So many players that are now entering the prime of their careers that the Dolphins have developed for other teams to use. Grier went all in. He pushed his chips in by getting Tyreek Hill, by going out and getting Jalen Ramsey, by signing Tua to his massive extension, by signing Jalen Waddle to his massive extension, and he thought he was going all in by bringing in some big names that formerly were really impactful on other teams that really just have not worked. And you look now, the Miami Dolphins 5-7, going only a few weeks left in the season, about a month or so left worth of games, 2.5 games back of the final wildcard spot in the Denver Broncos. You look above you, you got the Indianapolis Colts who have a tiebreaker over you, and you look at the ineptitude of how this team was managed. Look at what these other teams have done when quarterbacks have gone down. Look at in Minnesota. They've got 10 wins now with a quarterback that was expected to back up and help nourish J.J. McCarthy. You look at other teams that have had success in past years. Look at last year with the Cleveland Browns, how Joe Flacco was able to get to the playoffs. Instead, the Miami Dolphins stick with Skylar Thompson. You then go out and trade for Tyler Huntley. You somehow think that Tim Boyle is a capable quarterback in this league, and you bring him in, and he has to play some minutes for the Miami Dolphins. Tell me one thing, one area of his job that he has gotten correct, Chris Grier. Cannot draft well. He cannot trade well. He cannot handle free agency well. He has depleted this team of resources on both sides of the ball. Now this team is the oldest team in the league, below 500, looking like you're on the doorstep of missing the playoffs for the first time in a few years, which was supposed to be the best team in the last few years. You're supposed to bring in these bigger named guys that had success earlier in their careers. Jordan Poyer is supposed to be an all-pro safety. Kendall Fuller is supposed to be one of the better undervalued corners in this league. Guys that have been brought in other than Calais Campbell that were just brought in seemingly on name value alone rather than what their actual quality of production is at this point of their teams. And then again, you look at the guys they're replacing, all in their years of 25, 26, 27, out on other teams and doing a good job. Mike McDaniel has taken so much blame for this team, and there is blame to go for Mike McDaniel. I don't think he's a top 10 coach in this league. I do think he fails to establish a tough culture that you can win games with some grit. We've rarely seen the Miami Dolphins do that, and we saw that a case and example against the Green Bay Packers last week, where a team was just able to out-tough us. The environments were not in our favor, and we were not able to overcome it yet again. That does fall on the shoulders of Mike McDaniel, but the team construction, be able to take resources and make this team one of the best teams in the league, Chris Grier has ultimately failed with that, and it is time for Chris Grier to go. I will be sick to my stomach if I see Chris Grier as the Miami Dolphins GM when the season comes to an end. He should be one of the first names fired in this front office on this team in general. Let me know your thoughts of Chris Grier, because I know there's a lot of fans out there that are going to blame Mike McDaniel for what has gone wrong this season, and there still certainly is blame to go for Mike McDaniel. But let me know your thoughts specifically on Chris Grier down below in the comments. Is it time for him to go? Hit that like button, hit that sub button. Appreciate y'all very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.